Great. Okay, so thank you very much for joining me today. I'm My-Lien Bosch. I'm the Government Relations and Regulatory Affairs Manager. And I'm very excited to welcome you here. And I'm excited actually to be seeing you in a couple of weeks where we will be undertaking one of CODA's flagship events. We'll have a full day of learning at the Organic Summit, followed by basically taking a lot of what we've learned, using some of the arguments and some of our passion for organic, and going and taking that message to the Hill. So in terms of today's agenda, I want to give you a little context on what we'll be covering. So I see some of you have lobbied with us in the past, and that's great. And if you haven't, that's not a problem. I've tried in this presentation to be able to give you a background of what we're getting into and what you're going to look at. So we'll start with a short political landscape of what we're dealing with in this pre-election context. I'm sure you've been following the news, and there is a lot of crazy politics going on in Ottawa right now. Then we'll go through some advocacy 101, just some key points that you can keep in mind anytime you're advocating for any issue that you actually have. We'll talk about the national advocacy priorities for the organic sector that we've developed in conjunction with basically the Canadian Organic Alliance. So CODA, COG, Canadian Organic Growers, and Organic Federation of Canada, with lots of input from the last year from many of you from the provincial and territorial associations, and through discussions that we've had and surveys just through the year to get where we are. And finally, after that, I will go through some of the technical aspects of what to expect when we actually go to lobby on Parliament Day on November 19th, and how you'll be set up, and go from there. And then finally, I'll just end with what you can do. For example, if you're not joining us on November 19th and you'd like to continue to advocate for organic in your riding, in your province, in your city, that kind of stuff. And finally, we'll just, my presentation will take about 35 minutes, and then we'll end with some Q&A. And so I'll take questions at the end. This presentation is being recorded, and it will also, the slides will be shared as well. And they'll basically be shared with everyone. This is considered a mandatory training if you will be joining us on Lobby Day. And so basically what we're going to do is we're going to provide some context in terms of what to expect, what our asks are, allow you some time to process all of this, so that when we actually come to the Organic Summit, there will be some sessions where you'll be able to ask your additional questions, get clarification, and go from there. So some pre-election context. So this is a poll that was held by Angus Reid International in June of 2024 this year, and it indicates the top concerns of Canadians. So what you'll see that nationally, top concerns are what you would expect based on what we've seen in the news: inflation, cost of living, healthcare, housing, those are all there. Environment, climate change has come down. Immigration has actually even come up. It was originally from 8% and it's gone up to 18%. So that's another area. So you can kind of get a feel for the political landscape. Interestingly, environment in 2019, when they did this similar poll before the previous election, environment came up as number one. So 40% of those who responded had said that climate change had to be a key issue in order for a party to be viable. So it's interesting how things have changed. So how does that affect organic? So as the federal election approaches and we take a look at some of our lobbying, this is something that we have to consider at the back of our mind. So what you've noticed is agriculture is not among the top priorities of Canadians in this last year. It's affordability, it's housing, it's prices, and definitely for the organic sector, this has been a challenge, and we've heard this from a number of the different stakeholders. Another thing we've seen is lobbying activity is at an all-time high. So everybody is out there trying to get the attention of government and of all parties, and of the Conservatives or the Liberals, etc. Among this backdrop, what we've got is we've also got the Canada-US-Mexico agreement negotiations that are in the background. We know that the US elections are coming. All of this stuff is actually coming to form what is our view of the election as we move forward. Another thing I'll say is this is just a very brief overview as we head into this topic. During the Organic Summit, we actually have Aaron Freeman, who is a founder of GreenPAC, who they're very much used to lobbying for on green and climate issues. He will be presenting to us for what are the different party platforms. and what areas might we see more arguments that resonate between the different parties. So it'll be an additional preparation as we move into the lobby day. One thing we've also heard as we've been discussing with the different federal staff is that governments are saying that they have no extra funds. And so really what they're telling us is it's a matter of how do we best utilize the funds that are available already without considering necessarily a big influx of funding. And so what we've seen even in terms of the asks of many of associations and groups is that they've tempered or they've metered what their typical ask would be as a result of this. Another thing that we've heard is that because agriculture is not top of mind, unified voices with the same message, grassroots efforts, all of that is really, really critical at this point. So if you can imagine, if agriculture, even conventional agriculture, is not getting a lot of attention, if we go out with a lobby ask that is completely out in left field, that's not consistent with what anybody else has asked for, we will not be getting as much attention. So one thing that we've been doing has been to take a look at what some of the other lobby asks have been in some of the other sectors and see where we can still unify that message, but still maintain the organic specificity of the message that we'd like to keep. Another thing is the grassroots efforts. We've heard from some parties that they're not willing to meet with anybody unless they have a constituency that's going to be at a meeting. So they're out to get votes. And so all that you can do in your communications within your cities, within your provinces, within those who are in the political realm, make a big difference. And finally, what we want to do is we want to link organic issues to the broader issues where possible and demonstrate how organic can help meet different regional, federal objectives. And that would be how we would link, for example, maybe if climate is not necessarily top of mind, how we could bring that all back in. So why your voice matters right now. So the main thing right now is, as I've talked about, there's a lot of traffic right now in the lobby world, and the most compelling, the most effective advocates for organic businesses are you, and you know your business more than anyone else, and you know your community more than anyone else, and what the positive and the negative impacts of policy decisions are. So you are the expert. So that's great. So what we're trying to do when we actually go to lobby is we want to engage politicians in a conversation of what matters to their electorate. So we want to tell them stories. We want to tell them our brand stories. We want to tell them our company stories. We want to tell them our personal stories so that they can understand what are the key issues that we have and how we can, how their policies are affecting us. And another thing too is we want to amplify the message that helps align the organic asks throughout the year so that we are more effective in achieving our goals. So we've had a number of asks. I think as I'll go through some of the priorities later, but you'll see how they've evolved a little bit. But what we can do is we make sure that our message is consistent and clear so that they're hearing the same message, even if it's from different people. Organic is and always has been a nonpartisan issue. It doesn't matter if you're a Bloc Québécois or a conservative. We have allies and partners and supporters of organic in all political parties. So that's one thing. And what we're looking to do as we go into the lobby meetings this year and every year is to continue to build relationships so that we can have future discussions. So regardless of who goes into power, what we're trying to do is better understand share basically what the issues are and help better understand what can be done to do that. And as you may have heard from many people, lobbying and advocacy is not something where you can just have one and it's done and you got everything you ask. It is a long-term, it's a long-term objective and goal. And as a result, the relationship building is really, really important. So continuing with Advocacy 101. So what you want to do is when you're going to be going into any type of meeting or having any type of conversation with an elected official, or someone you want to advocate your issue towards, is to tailor your message. So this is meaning, first of all, you want to know your audience. So CODA has some different tools and resources that we will be sharing so that you can have a little bit of better understanding of who these MPs are, what are their portfolios, what is it about their constituency, and you want to be able to tailor it and relate it to their province, to their constituency, their political party, any of the things that they might have supported in the past, to basically build common ground and be able to have a conversation. All the people that we have met have basically agreed to a meeting, but they are not necessarily in the agricultural portfolio. Is their portfolio might not be environment. It's just basically MPs who have agreed to meet with us who want to hear more about organic and about the priorities. And so in some cases, what some of you may have noticed in the past is some of them don't know anything about agriculture. They may not know anything about the sustainable ag strategy. They don't know that, but what they do is they have an interest in hearing what your story is. So if that's the case, what you want to do is you want to start with the basics. You want to bring them along, tell them your story, tell them what the issues are, and then go from there. Now, when you tell your story, what I recommend is that you review the national organic priorities. So I'll be sharing those in the next few slides, and you consider how they relate to you or your business. So what you want to do when you do that is you want to be able to convey to them that it impacts them and that it will impact the employees, job creation, all of those things that are definitely very top of mind right now. You want to keep your message simple and concise. One thing we learned last year when we presented the Organic Action Plan was that it was quite complicated. And the message wasn't simple and concise. It was hard for people to understand the idea of a directive or a mandate. And there were just so many strands because we know with organic, there's so many things that we could work on that we want to improve and advocate for. So we want to just come back to some simple messages. And again, your message should convey why your organic business matters and the benefits that you would realize with different policy or supports. And the best way of doing this, the most effective ones, is when you provide concrete examples. So if you have an issue, um, for example, with insurance, providing an example about what you're doing, and so that you can better frame the issue so that they can really understand and take that away from, just a policy ask to something that really impacts Canadians and constituencies. And finally, of course, stay on topic. You will only have 30 minutes to talk. And one thing you'll see is 30 minutes just whizzes by. So keep with that one. So again, high level in our national organic priorities, the key messages that we're looking at delivering and making sure the takeaway is that investing in organic is good for the economy, it's good for trade, it's good for the environment, rural communities, farmers, and workers. And so if they can, that's one thing we've heard is with all the plethora of advocacy asks that are out there across the entire Canadian industry and all of that, you need to come back with a simple message that's very easy to understand. So basically, if you had to do it in, 20, 30 seconds, Canada has not realized its full potential for organic, and we risk losing our competitiveness. And there is a huge consumer demand. And the demand is based on health attributes, environmental attributes that organic can deliver. And we need to help support our domestic production. We need to support our markets so that we can basically fully take advantage of the domestic and global demand for the benefit of all Canadians. We need data because that's one thing that's lacking across the entire sector. So be it from basic production data, on-farm climate data, trade data, all of that is we don't have a good repository or public database of that. So that is key. And we need to support transitioning farmers. That's what we're seeing right now, or transitioning operators. That's really required, especially since there are so many ecosystem services and benefits that organic offers. One thing is that we know that organic can help the government meet many of their objectives that they have, and they can do it using, the policy instrument of using organic policy, but being able to hit multiple objectives at once. So that's definitely a positive. So about this time last year, we were introducing the idea of an organic action plan, which is basically a plan that the three national associations, the COA, came together, and we saw a need for creating that. And with, of course, the help of some world-renowned consultants, for example, Paul Hombick, I think many of you have heard him speak, to talk about this. And so why do we need an organic action plan? So one thing that's been very clear is that for the last 15 years, a lot of organic growth has been based on growth driven by the sector. And what we need to get to the next level of growth is an active private-public partnership and a stronger collaboration with the government, especially since we meet many of their sustainability and development goals. And so the plan should balance growth and competitiveness while helping meet the goals on climate, biodiversity, and sustainable development. This is a plan that is initiated by the sector with much of your feedback. And again, it's not a new plan. It's something that has been 15 plus years in the making based on feedback and surveys and questionnaires and discussions that we've had. And it's a comprehensive long-term growth strategy. So that's one thing that I really want you to get out of this is when we go to publish this discussion paper, which will happen by year end, it's basically covering everything. It's a comprehensive look at what would it take to grow the organic sector based on what we've learned in other jurisdictions. And it basically is a blueprint for government sector collaboration. So we know that not all of this will happen right away, and we need to actually prioritize and we have to sequence what are the key things that are the drivers that will basically open up other aspects of organic growth, and then we can build from that. So really a prioritization exercise. And of course, it's a tool to help meet the government's objectives. And again, this discussion paper, we published a framework last year. The COA has been furiously working and diligently working to get a more fulsome document for your review. The idea is that we'll have a document because there are government objectives as well as sector objective that we can meet. To have a couple of discussion papers so that we can see, what do you as a sector need? What is it? What's feasible? Where should we prioritize? Similarly, there's going to be a slightly adapted paper that would be addressed towards government. So again, just a review on the pillars of the Organic Action Plan. So basically, we're looking at expanded opportunities for organic trade, climate, food security, resiliency among our sector. So we're looking first at strengthening the framework and infrastructure of growth. We're looking at production and processing to make sure that there is support, production supports, so that we can meet domestic demand. We want to stimulate organic market development, and we want to take a look at advancing research with impact, because really innovation is what drives a lot of the sectors. And in organic, all that research is so important as we increase our resiliency. So a little bit more detail. There's a lot of words here, and I just want to assure you, not going to need to go through all of that. We actually have a discussion paper as well that you'll be able to review, but knowing that you'll be reviewing it and skimming it, I just included it here. But basically, the framework and infrastructure for growth is taking a look at a few things. So we're looking at an organic data strategy. That's one thing that has been really identified that's needed, that will really unlock much of what it takes to make good business decisions and policy decisions around organic. Capacity building in the sector, both of government capacity to support extension and knowledge transfer, but also of the sector. So we know that our provincial and regional and territorial organizations do a lot in terms of training and knowledge transfer, and there should be some more capacity building in this. Regulations and standards, so ensuring that we have robust standards and regulations that will meet our needs and meet where we want to grow. An organic specific, so I use a lot of words here, a policy, a mandate, a directive, a legislation, an act, whatever you want to call it. But the idea being that there is a concerted effort to identify that organic needs something specific to help it grow. So that's the idea, and not just look at enforcement, but really looking at developing the sector and allowing Canada to take full advantage of all the things. And of course, a long-term funding mechanism. We know that this is a challenge across all the organic associations, so something to be able to handle this. So in terms of pillar 2, it's about accelerating growth and innovation in the production and processing. And so basically what we're looking at is de-risking, organic, ensuring that we have the sufficient transition supports so that we continue to have farmers and operators come in, especially when they're not getting those organic premiums that you get once you're already certified. Extension services and knowledge transfer, we know how important that is, but also how it can be translated to other sectors, including conventional. Certification costs, we know, can be the model we have is quite difficult, especially for smaller organizations, and encourage a continued innovation and incentivize resilient food systems. So those early adopters that organic always has been, part of. So what can we do to encourage that and be able to reward that behavior so we can get more of it? And of course, increasing processing capacity. It's one thing to have the production, but how does that translate so that into products that consumers will be wanting? Third pillar, again, of the Organic Action Plan that I'm just reviewing again is the stimulating organic market development. So the ask here would, or this pillar involves an organic market development fund, which we've seen in other jurisdictions like EU, US, and other countries, looking at stimulating it so that we can balance the production and the market. And one of the drivers that we've heard about is that when those two are in balance, you can really get good growth. If that's out of balance, you do get an imbalance, and that can impact the growth of your sector. So public procurement strategies have been part of that. We know that the National Food School program has just announced a program for that. How can organic fit into that? And then a key thing too is public trust, education to increase consumer demand. So we know that organic is one of the most trusted, or if not the most trusted, sustainability claim in Canada for many years now. And when consumers understand what it delivers, they actually will support it, and their demand actually increases. And of course, we have a lot of trade. There's a lot of focus on that in Canada, but our equivalency arrangements and agreements and making sure that we can support exports as well. Finally, the fourth pillar is about advancing research with impact. And so again, this is, there's so much in the science clusters. We know that there was a recent announcement on that one, but investing more in organic research, because this is, and even the low input model, which is actually key to being able to mitigate climate, promote soil health and biodiversity, and all of the wonderful environmental benefits that we have. So the idea is that you'd have an overall increase investment in organic research where it's really required. And we've got a number of groups that have shared in that and are very active in identifying what those research goals are, but also to transfer those scientific outcomes from the research from the lab to the farm so that we can continue to promote adoption and basically help with some of that knowledge transfer. So that was what I just provided, was a big overview of basically the Organic Action Plan. As I said, it's a long-term strategy. There's a lot in it. It basically covers everything that we've seen in other jurisdictions and that we've seen here in Canada that that work in terms of developing the sector. But as we go through our lobby asks, we need, as we said, we need it to be simple, we need to be concise, and we need to prioritize. And so what we've done is we've taken a look at what are some of the asks that are more specific, and how can we share that? So these are going to be the asks that we go in with Lobby Day. I'll just make a note here that a lot of what I've talked about is related to a national organic action plan, federal objectives, but a lot of this is actually also related to provincial or territorial as well. So we know, for example, that the cost share, excuse me, model that we have with the FPT, the federal, provincial, territorial, is with that 60-40 split. There may be some objectives, but at the end of the day, there are some differences because different provinces implement it in different ways. And so the other thing we've heard too is, as we're going to promote our federal asks, whenever, because it's a negotiation between the provinces and territories and the federal government, wherever those asks align, there's a higher chance that you're going to see some movement. So if our federal asks are very different than our provincial asks, when they have to go and they have to take a look at what's the next funding, that becomes very hard for the regulators to figure out. But where they align, sharing the same message again, that really helps. So even if you take this towards your provincial or territorial or regional advocacy, think how these asks, maybe they're more federal, how could they fit into what your provincial, your more regional requirements are? So the first one is an organic data strategy. I'll talk a little bit more and the justification for these in the next slide, but I'll just present them really quick here. Market development, we've talked about that, the pull on the market and the push on the production support. So 3 things there. And what we want to do when we have those asks is we want to ask our MPs, how are you supporting the organic sector's needs? And what are you willing to do to advance our requests? So first of all, more detail on the first ask, the organic data strategy. So in Canada, we do not have a public database that has just basic information about acreage, some of the things that are just necessary for basic decision-making, policy-making, business. And so this impacts, and supply chain, so that you can do forecasts, you can talk about trade, all of that kind of stuff. It also impacts integrity as well. So we know that in other jurisdictions, there's a lot more data available, and those certifiers and the sector can actually use that to help consider organic fraud and ensure they maintain the integrity of the system. So the reason why organic data strategy is so important is it's really integral. You really need that data. It's also a cross-cutting initiative that's in step with objectives that the government has recently really focused on, as well as industry, that we've been asking for a long time. So at the federal, provincial, territorial agriculture ministers meeting, that was a big topic. We're seeing more and more this concept of data. How do we use data? How do we use data to justify our decisions? How do we prove that we're being sustainable? And the power of data to be able to do more. That's something that's out there. So we're being consistent. Conventional sectors are asking for the same thing around data. Um, and we're also looking at supporting market development and trade. And so again, the data helps you decide, what you're going to grow, where it's going to be, who should invest, et cetera. So we will be putting out, the COA will be putting out an organic data white paper that will be published by the end of November this year that will support this. But for the purposes of today, just the key ask is about organic data strategy, and that's the reason. The second one is about supporting organic market growth. So what we ask for is establishing an organic market development fund, again, like other sectors have, basically to be able to balance the organic supply and demand and make sure that the demand is there so the supply can actually go to fill it. And often that's actually going to increase the demand and the growth as well. And this will actually add more predictability, sustainability, and reduce risk for many of the operators so that they know that their market that they're going into. We're going to look at capitalizing on the market opportunities and really position Canada's ag sector that we're not just all about bigger and more. We also have higher premiums. We have added value products. Those are all things that are positive for the social and economic factors of agriculture. We're looking to bolster consumer trust while ensuring fair market access. Again, a lot of that through education and supporting consumer awareness and events and helping the value chain have more collaboration, especially through through retail distribution and food service. And of course, we know that in April, the National School Food Program was announced. And so there is an opportunity. How can we inject organic into the public procurement policies and programs that we already have federally? The third ask that we have is around production supports. And so production supports is not only about reducing the risk of transition to organic production so that we have more producers entering, but also ensuring that we have financial incentives, advisory services to encourage adoption, increased adoption, and to be able to keep those organic producers in the system. So we do this by managing the business risks, enhancing the transition supports, and fostering innovation. We know that organic farming and agriculture has a lot of environmental benefits to soil health, GHG emissions, livelihoods of rural communities, and allowing farmers to stay on the farm for small, medium size, et cetera, and diversifying Canada's agri-food pathway. And actually, there's a study or a report that's going to be published by end of year that COG has initiated that will provide a little bit more comparison and analysis of the environment and the economic benefits of organic agriculture compared to conventional. So looking at GHG emissions, soil health, et cetera. So that will be coming out, and that will be supporting our ask about the production supports and why it's so important to have that kind of policy support. And of course, we always want to increase the domestic supply of organic, take advantage of the positive outcomes that we have, and make sure that we can deal with instead of having other countries be able to take all the benefits and then export to us, we can have those advantages there. And this is very much in line with the sustainable agri strategy as well. So this is another area that the production support really fits in closely with what other ag sectors are discussing and the government's discussing. So again, that alignment piece. So those, again, in summary, we have three asks. as we go in this year in our advocacy efforts, the first one being robust, organic, publicly available data. The second one being some market supports, so developing the market so that we can really take advantage of that, and the production support. So they all play together to make sure that we have a strong, sustainable, thriving organic sector in Canada. So what I'll go through next is talk a little bit. So for those of you who are lobbying with us on November 19th. If you have not registered yet and you want to join us in person, please do. It's not too late. Tuesday is the deadline for in-person registration. If you're not able to join us in person, we also have online registration, so you can get a lot of the information as well. And this year, for the first time, we've got some French translation interpretation. I forgot to note that for all of those, all of our partners and our colleagues who actually function in French primarily, we do have French meetings as well. And all the materials for the advocacy will be both in French and English. So right now I'm presenting only in English. I'm happy to discuss with you further if there was anything that was you didn't understand. But those materials that will be submitted to the elected officials will all be in French, and you'll have availability to that. So we'll be having breakfast in the morning, meet at the Delta Hotel lobby, and then we will take our photo at 8 a.m. on Parliament Hill at the Centennial Flame. So that's basically the start. You will then congregate into your teams that CODA will be forming, and you will basically have meetings between 9 and 4. So each person will have between 2 and 4 meetings. It could be with different political parties. It could, if you've indicated French is your main language, it'll be in French, otherwise it'll be in English. And yeah, that's what we're looking at. Lunch will be available from 11:30 to 1:30 at the Capitale Room at the Delta Hotel. That will be kind of our mission control. If ever you need to go and have a coffee or just chill or just talk to somebody and have some more networking, that's the place to go. And then at the end of it all, at 4 to 6, we'll have an optional meetup at the Three Brewers. So just to be able to unwind, great job, and talk about everything that happened. So just so that you understand, this is what's happening in the background so you guys will show up on November 19th, but in the background, this is all that's happening. We will be sending some documents in advance to the MPs and senators. There'll be a 2-page briefing note, so it'll include the rationale and the lobby asks. So they would have already seen it. So for your job is really just to reiterate it and put it in a perspective that it becomes more alive for them and it becomes more real and relevant. There'll be quick facts about organic. So we have a number of those fact sheets and the stats and data that CODA collects annually. There'll be a 2-page summary of the National Organic Action Plan. The full document is probably over 50 pages. So this will be a brief summary so that people can get the gist and see how our asks actually fit into this. There'll be one thing that has always been very positive is we have organic operators listed by the MP or senator. So basically, this is very powerful as a tool because when you go into that meeting, you can say, well, hey, you should care about organic because you've got 150 organic operators in your region or whatever. They can then, often they will take a look at the names. They'll say, oh, I know those guys. And then again, it just builds that connection, right? And of course, list of sector participants and affiliation. So those of you who've been signed out, you'll be put in teams. So advocacy teams will be 3 to 4 people led by a delegated CODA leader. Some of that will be CODA staff. Some of them will be some of the COA who've been working with us on some of those advocacy priorities. And some of the resources that you will be getting, we're still working on some of them, but you will be getting them early next week. So additional links to the background info on the elected officials so that you can do your research and know who you're dealing with. There will be a QR code that will be shared, and basically it will include the meeting schedule, the locations of your schedule, the contact numbers of all the participants. So one thing we found is no matter how much you plan, there's always inevitably something that will change. There's another meeting, a vote took longer, and some of these meetings will have to be switched. So it's really important that you continually update that QR code. It has all that information. There will be a briefing package, will be very similar to what the MPs and senators got so that you know what's going on. We also have GreenPAC, Aaron Freeman, who is the founder of GreenPAC and who is very versed in doing advocacy on environment. presenting to the summit participants as one of our sessions. And basically, he'll be giving us an overview of what the policy, the platforms of all the parties are, and what arguments would resonate more in terms of climate and organic and sustainability. So that'll be very interesting. And then finally, a lot of what just kind of the preamble so that you can kind of wrap your brain around it is in this webinar. Excuse me, but there will be a final brief mock session and training on the 18th following the Green Pack presentation. See any other questions that you have and just get you ready. So, and then of course from there we have our parliamentary reception, which this year is being sponsored by Senator Rob Black, who, if you're not aware, was the one who introduced the soil health study, the first one in 40 years in the Senate. So it's very exciting to have Senator Rob Black there. Minister Macaulay will be there, as well as MP Cody Bois, who is the chair of the Agriculture Committee, who will be providing some initial remarks. So this is exciting. Oops. So even as we go through all that background and we are planning all of these meetings and getting you scheduled, I would like to put out a reach out to help us reach more MPs. So because of the political situation and because there's so much going on, we've outright had some MPs say, if you don't have a constituent in your meeting, I won't join. So this is where the grassroots effort, this is where your letters to your MP to say, I'm a constituent, organic is important to me. I would like to talk to you about the priorities and let's have a meeting actually are effective. Last year, we got 5 meetings on top of what we had because the lobby day participants actually sent letters. And so there was some shuffling around and we were able to get some additional meetings. And for me, additional meetings means additional opportunity to really advocate for the organic sector and to be able to build bridges of understanding on organic. So there is a template that's in English, that's in French. You just basically, it takes about 5 minutes. Just look up your MP if you don't know who it is, look up their email address, copy paste it into an email, send it. You don't need to do any more of the follow-up. Coda will do it. Just copy us on it and we'll do the follow-up and see if we can get more meetings. So anyway, that's my call for that one. And also looking at kind of what to expect on the parliamentary day. So before your scheduled meeting, often all the meetings will only be 30 minutes long. If you arrive late, tough luck. There's other things that are going on. So you want to allow at least 15 minutes for security. We've had incidences where people have been early, and so the meeting has actually been longer. So it's allowed you more time to actually discuss with the MP. Bring your government issued ID and your business cards, of course. ID, if you don't have it, you don't get in. So this is critical. Team lead will let the front desk know how you're meeting with them. We'll have a quick discussion about that. You go over your game plan with your team, either on November 18th, early November 19th. So you make sure you look at your points, who's the best, who's going to have that, who's going to be delivering that point, weave in your personal story, know your audience, and tailor that message. So just so that you see what 30 minutes actually looks like, it is fast. And actually what we've heard from people is, one of, even those who had never lobbied before, being able to lobby and go in front of a group or elected officials with a group with an organized kind of ask and know that you're fully supported and be able to basically advocate for what you love and that you completely believe in is one of the best parts of this lobby day. So if you look at it, 3 to 4 people, 1 to 2 minutes per person. You've got 5 minutes that you got to set to do a group photo because, everyone wants to have that and post on social media, and 10 to 15 minutes to present your asks. Not only just to present your asks, but also to ask them questions back and have any discussions, right? So this is the area that we can see, are they supportive of our asks? Are they willing to do more? Who would they recommend? What do they know within their party platform or their federal election platform that could help us or that's consistent with what we do? Because this is just one day of the lobby, but we will be continuing to advocate for organic next year and in years to come. So during the meetings, make sure you thank them. If you know of anything that they've done in the community, for example, the Agriculture Standing Committee on their horticulture study, they did put a recommendation about organic policy and trade. So that's a great thing that you can thank them for. Make connections for whatever based on your research. and make your case 3 to 4 minutes. Stay on topic. You will all have a chance to speak. The team lead will make sure of that. But just knowing that, having a plan in place, knowing where your arguments fit and how does it fit is great. Takes notes as best as you can. Coda will do all the follow-up and make sure that you get a photo. And so just some final tips during the meeting: relax, be yourself. This is a conversation, and an opportunity to just open, show a different perspective. Know your role, as I said. What are you going to be presenting? What's your topic you're going to share? Be respectful, make sure everyone has a chance to speak. As I said, staffers time, be on time. You probably will be cut off after half an hour, and plan time for any key messages before and after your meeting. So you're going to plan to see how you want to present your message, but afterwards, definitely make sure you do a debrief and say what went well, what didn't go well, what else could we do, etc. And I know everyone says this, but have fun. As I said, it's not a joke. People actually really have a lot of fun being able to talk about this kind of stuff and advocate. And in terms of lobby registry, any of your activities that you're doing on that day for advocacy will go under CODA's lobby registry. So you wouldn't have to register as a lobbyist or anything like that. Okay, so those are for people who will be joining us on Parliament Day itself. But so you can't join us. And as I promised, there's other ways that you can help advocate and share your message. So you could arrange a meeting in your riding. You could write a letter to your MP and tell them what the priorities are and share that. CODA is willing to help with any additional messaging or background that you need. And the best time to get them is when they're in their constituencies and they're focusing on their riding and the issues of their riding. I put some dates in there. But with that said, some of them are willing to do virtual meetings as well, even when they're in Ottawa or even in their riding. So reach out and see what you can do. And do you have a farm or a facility tour that you could offer up so they could really feel what it's like to be in the organic sector and all that's needed for policy to build growth? This would be another great opportunity to showcase organic and let the MPs know about the sector. So with that said, I will say thank you very, very much. Looking forward to advocating with you for organic. I know we're all very passionate about it. And yeah, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to reach out. We will be sharing all the information on CODA Parliament Day 2024 hashtag on social media. So come on out. And with that, I'll leave questions. And I just had one other question for myself in case it would trigger anything. For those who have lobbied in the past, what have you found worked to get the message across? And is there any learnings that you can give some of our newbies or others who are just always looking to do a better job on that communicating message? So thank you very much.